Claire and I believe Rachel will coordinate. So we'll just go through that at the very end. And so first off, I just wanted to introduce a grounding exercise. Has anybody done a grounding exercise? You can just raise your hand if you have. No? Okay, so some of you have, some of you haven't. So what a grounding exercise is just to transition from maybe what you've been doing previously into something new. So it just allows us to stop, take a breath, focus, and helps us kind of let go of what we've been previously doing. So I know, we may have come here from lunch, maybe really busy. So it just allows us to take a little bit of a breath. So I just invite you to close your eyes if you're comfortable. So you can move around in your chair if you'd like. Close your eyes if you're comfortable. If you're not comfortable doing that, that's okay. You can just have your gaze lowered a bit. And just notice any contact points. So for example, your feet on the floor, or maybe your hands resting on your lap, or maybe your sit bones on your chair. Maybe you notice some sensations. So maybe the warmth of your hands sitting on your lap. And maybe you notice your breath. And we're just going to take a couple moments here just to focus on those things. And you can slowly open your eyes. And just take a couple moments just to notice how you feel. Notice how you feel when you first logged on versus maybe how you feel now, just taking that breath or just noticing, how you feel now going forward. So sometimes it's just nice to do a small practice like that. It doesn't have to be, 10 minutes. It can just be, a couple seconds, 15, 20 seconds, just to notice how you're feeling, just to kind of come into the present. And it just helps people focus a little bit on different tasks moving forward. So now that we're a little bit focused, we can focus on talking a bit more about motivation. So I'll go to my next slide here. So the overview of today and today's agenda will be talking about the Live Well BNV program. So if nobody's heard about the Live Well BNV program, I know you'll be really excited to hear about what we have to offer. And we'll be talking about how it's managed by the Heart and Stroke Foundation of New Brunswick and how we're fully funded by the government of New Brunswick as well. We'll be talking about the Live Well BNV health coaches and how they may be of help to you. We'll also be talking about our contact information. So we know that once you hear about the program, you'll probably be really excited to reach out to us. And so we'll talk about all the ways that you can get in touch. And then also we'll talk about, of course, motivation. So we have a mini motivation workshop that we'll go through today. So sound good so far? Thumbs up? Yep. Okay, great. So first off, I'll just tell you a little bit more about the background about the Live Well program. So the Live Well BNV program, it's one of the suite of programs that is part of the health promotion department at the Heart and Stroke Foundation of New Brunswick. So the Heart and Stroke Foundation of New Brunswick, their mission statement is promote health, save lives, and enhance recovery. So the Live Well BNV program actually fits really nicely underneath their suite of programs in their health promotion department because we actually focus on all of those three things. So it aligns really nicely with their mission statement. Also, I do want to mention our funding partner. So the Live Well BNV program is made possible by our funding partner, which is the Government of New Brunswick, the Department of Health. And we're actually able to offer this program free of cost because of our funding partner. So that's wonderful. All right. So this is a little bit of an overview of what the Live Well BNV program is. So as I mentioned, it's free. So essentially, it's a free health coaching program that's open to any New Brunswicker that's 19 years of age and over. It's accessible, so anybody can participate in the program. It's self-referral, so anybody can reach out and contact us. You don't need a doctor's referral or anything like that. You yourself can just contact us and we can schedule a date and time and a meeting location with you. And we really focus on helping people through the process of change rather than telling them what to do. So I'll get into more of a description on that in a few minutes, but it's really helping people with the process of changing their behavior. So one of the things that we do is we really help guide and support people through, again, the process of changing their behavior. So a really good example I like to use to help explain, I guess, the role of a health coach and how we're a little bit different from other health professionals. So to give you an example, there's lots of different healthcare professionals out there. There's dietitians, there's chiropractors, there's pharmacists, there's doctors. There's a whole host of different people that give us lots of different information. But one of the things that happens is that sometimes we might walk away from one of those meetings and we might be really overwhelmed with the amount of information that we've been given, and we might not know where to start. And to give you kind of a more specific example of that, I had a client who went to go see a dietitian, and the dietitian was wonderful. They gave them lots of different information, great advice, great suggestions. But they walked away from that meeting thinking, oh my gosh, where do I even start with all this information? And one of the things that happens is that person might go home and they might think, oh gosh, I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do. And there's kind of this gap in between, having all the information and then actually implementing it into our life in a way that works well for us. So what really the health coaches do is they help fill that gap of once people have the information, for example, we help fill that gap of helping people with the logistics and planning and figuring out goals and things like that, so that it makes it a bit easier for people to implement the changes into their lifestyle. So one of the things that, and I'll kind of get into this a little bit later, but one of the things that we do is really help people brainstorm out different things. So for example, if people don't know where to start, we can help people brainstorm. We can help people prioritize things. We can help people create manageable goals. We can help people talk through barriers and challenges. We can help connect people to all kinds of different community resources. So we do kind of a whole host of different things. And we're not healthcare professionals. We don't prescribe, diagnose, recommend particular specific things. But what we do is really kind of the logistics and helping people figure out how to actually implement what they would like to do into their life in a way that works for them over a long period of time. So we also don't focus on quick fixes or anything like that. We want people to have something that they will be able to stick with and keep up for a long period of time. So it's something that works for them and their lifestyle. So the next one talks a bit about our success. So health coaching has been proven to be successful in helping clients achieve sustainable long-term behavior changes. And I've actually been in this role since 2012. So I've been working as a health coach with the Live Well program since then. And I can tell you that it's a really, really rewarding job. And I see the changes firsthand every day in my clients. And it can be so inspiring to me because I'm just like everybody else. Some days I have bad days, my motivation is lacking. Sometimes I have trouble figuring out what goals to set and all of that. So it's really inspiring to see other people do their goals as well. So to give you an example of that, I was working with somebody She was in her mid-50s, and she would watch her grandson during the afternoons for her daughter. And she noticed that when she went to the playground to play with her grandson, that she'd always have to take breaks and she'd always have to sit down. And she really didn't like that. That really bothered her, not to be able to play with her grandson as much as she wanted to. So she reached out, contacted me. We started working on some physical activity goals together. We started some walking goals and things like that. And after about a month, she came to see me and she said, "Oh my gosh, I don't want to give this walking thing up." And I said, "What happened? What's going on?" And she said, "Well, I'm just noticing that I have so many benefits. My breathing's better. I can play with my grandson more. I don't have to take breaks. I can keep up with them." So one of the things to keep in mind is that when we start reaping those personal, meaningful benefits, it just makes us want to keep going. And that also helps with the motivation too, which I'll be talking about a little bit later. But it's those meaningful things that are so important. So another thing is that we meet for a defined period of time. And we also meet in a variety of health, community, and virtual settings. So currently right now, we are meeting people virtually, so either by Zoom or by phone. And we are starting to look at, as the restrictions get lifted, we are starting to look at meeting people in other areas too, and the community health settings and things like that. But just for now, we are keeping it virtually for now. But hopefully, as the restrictions get lifted, we'll start meeting people in person again. So hopefully you're excited about this program and want to tell everybody about this. It is a wonderful program. So our contact information is listed there. So there's our toll-free phone number you can reach out to. We have our email address, which is info@lwbv.ca. We have our website, lwbv.ca. We have a Facebook page. We're also on Instagram. So you can feel free to reach out to us any way that you'd like. And, you know, we hope that you're as excited about the program as we are too. And again, I just want to mention that it's free, it's accessible. We work with people, you know, to make sure that they can meet with us. So you can always reach out and we'll be able to accommodate you. Another thing I just want to mention is that, so now that you know about the Live Well BMV program, so one of the things that we like to do is offer mini workshops or small workshops, just so people can get an idea of what they can talk about or chat with a health coach and how we can be of help to you. So that's really what the mini motivation workshop will kind of be today. It's just really getting a snapshot of what the program is can offer you and what it can help you with motivation wise. But again, we offer a whole host of different things too that we can help you with. So this will just be a small snapshot of that. So one of the things when we think about motivation, and when we think about a definition of motivation, it's really the reason someone has for acting or behaving in a particular way. Or another definition is someone's general desire or willingness to do something. So when we think about motivation, there's all kinds of things that can happen throughout our day that have kind of a motivation behind it. And sometimes our motivation is lacking too. So that can be hard when we want to do something, but we find that our motivation is lacking a bit. So, and you can just show me by a show of hands, because I know I've done all of these things. But some examples of where motivation can lack or sometimes day to day. So for example, if someone decided not to go for a walk because it was pouring rain outside, I've definitely done that. Or it's been cold or snowy, I've definitely done that. someone having a good intention of getting up early in the morning, but when the alarm goes off, you hit the snooze button not once, but maybe 5 times. I've definitely done that. Or maybe it's you have a good intention of going to bed earlier, having a bedtime routine. But, maybe we get sidetracked by social media or, whatever it might be. And next time we look at the clock, it's, oh my gosh, it's midnight. Definitely done that. So it can kind of show up anywhere throughout our day. And just some important things to keep in mind with motivation is that there's a difference in between the shoulds and the wants. So, and I'll kind of explain this out a little bit more. So if it's something you want to do, it's important to you, it's very personal, it's very meaningful, and you'll want to do it. So that's, for example, the example I gave of the woman and her grandson, playing with her grandson. She wanted to be around with her grandson and be able to play with them, right? So it's something we want to do. And when it's personal, meaningful, we're more likely to do it. If it's something that we think we should do, but don't really want to do it, we might not make it as big of a priority, right? So it's really important to make sure that whatever we decide to do, that it's really important to us, and there might be some personal or meaningful attachment to it. And when we look at motivation in that way, we're really looking at 2 different types of motivation, which is internal motivation and external motivation. So, and just to explain a little bit further, so the definitions that I just gave of the shoulds and wants really line up with external and internal. So internal motivation is really when we have that personal, meaningful reason for doing something. Maybe it's personal enjoyment of activity or something we like to do, whatever it is, or maybe it's something personal to us. So there's some examples on the screen there. And external motivation is when you're doing it for somebody or something else. So that could be, it could be that, I promised my best friend that I would go walking tonight, but I don't really want to, but I told her I would, so I'll go. So it's things like that. You're doing it for somebody or something else. Neither one of those motivations are better than the other. However, there's 2 things to note with them. So the first thing is that one of the things to keep in mind is that external motivation, you're relying on somebody else. So if my friend called and said, I don't really want to go either, it might make me say, oh, okay, all right, well, maybe not tonight. So it's not that motivating, right? So if we're relying on other people all the time. So that makes it so that it may not be as sustainable. So it might work for a short period of time, but not always. The other thing to keep in mind too is that when we think about internal motivation, it might take a little while for the personal, meaningful benefits to kind of come out. So you might not reap those benefits for a little bit of time. So what's really helpful is to have a combination of the 2 types of motivation so that if you're lacking on one, you can draw off the other. So you're kind of knowing what you need and taking from different types of motivation when you need it. Has anybody heard of this before, internal and external motivation? You can just raise your hand if you have or nod your head. No? Yeah? So some yes, some no. Yeah. It's a really interesting way of looking at things. Absolutely. So the next slide, we're just going to look at some different things that could be internal and external motivation. And I'll explain a little bit about a toolkit. So if anybody's ever heard of a toolkit, kind of an imaginary toolkit that you have, I'll give a good example of what I mean by this. So when we have a toolkit, it's almost like if you can imagine if you're in a car and you're driving down the highway and you run out of gas. And you might have in your car a whole bunch of different tools to help with different situations. So you might have some booster cables, maybe you have a spare tire, maybe you have an emergency kit for the winter, whatever it might be. But really, is a spare tire going to help with the gas situation? Probably not. You're going to need gas, right? So you need the right tool for the right job, right? So it's finding what will work for the particular situation. So one of the things that you can have is you can have this motivational toolkit. And we've named it here, for example, positive self-talk toolkit. So what this is, and we'll just talk about phrases and words first, and then we'll kind of get into the other stuff. But you can have different words or phrases that can really help you in certain situations, so that when you're in a situation and you're lacking that motivation, you can have quick things that you can just take out of that imaginary toolbox and use right away. Sometimes it's really hard or difficult to think of something right on the spot to say to yourself or help you keep going. So it can help to have this toolbox all prepped and ready to go. So to give you some examples of when this would be helpful, would be maybe somebody is sitting in meditation and maybe they're thinking they're having a really hard time focusing or concentrating, and maybe they're thinking, oh my gosh, how much time is left, and am I able to sit here for this long, and their mind's going. So what kinds of things can you say to yourself during that time? So maybe it's, I just need to focus. Maybe it's, look at how far I've come. I can't give up now. Maybe it's, whatever it might be. And what you say to yourself really matters. So if you can think of, somebody did this on me a couple years ago and it always stuck with me. And if you can think about, if I told you to not think about a pink elephant, how many people would think about a pink elephant? I know I would, right? So the way that you say things to yourself also matters. So if you frame it in a positive way, you're more likely to focus on a positive manner. So that's why we have the positive self-talk title on the toolkit here. Another example would be, I was working with a client last week who he just started jogging. So he worked on walking goals for a while, and now he's working on jogging goals right now. And right now he's working on jogging for a little bit more time, so that eventually he'll be more so jogging rather than walking in his training sessions. So right now, each time that he jogs, he wants to jog a little bit further and a little bit further. So some of the things that he was telling me that he was talking to, or he was telling himself, was things like, I got this, just one more step, I'm strong, I'm proud of myself for how far I've come. So just to help keep him going, right? That extra little bit. So I want to ask you, and you can take yourself off mute and share a word or phrase, but I wanted to ask you, are there any words or phrases that you've used that have helped you in certain situations? And you don't have to share, but feel free if you'd like.
I always use I am strong.
Awesome. I love that. Good. Anybody else like to share? No?
I am willing.
I am willing. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good one. Yep. And the thing about this is that it doesn't have to be, there's no right or wrong with it. It's whatever resonates with you, right? Yeah, that's a great one. Anybody else?
I think I would say it makes me feel better.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yep. Anyone else? No? Excellent. Those are great ones. And again, there's no right or wrong. It's just whatever resonates with you. And there's some examples up on the slide here. You got this, I can do this, I'm doing amazing, I'm a survivor, look at how far I've come, so proud of myself, my family is proud of me, I'm loved, I feel valued. Whatever resonates with you is helpful. So one of the things, and you can just kind of take a look at all the images that flash up here on the screen, but one of the things that happens is that sometimes different memories or different things, different pictures or different things that come up can really highlight a feeling or a certain memory, and that can also be in our toolbox too. So there could be certain feelings, certain words, certain memories that you also have in your toolbox that you can pull out, when you feel like you need it. And I always tell people, I love this picture of the little guy. I always tell people, have fun with it. It's whatever you want it to be. It's whatever is going to make you feel good, right? So no right or wrong. So you can think about things that could be in your toolbox. And I'll give you quite a number of examples here just to kind of get you thinking about what would be in your toolbox and what would that look like for you. Because again, I know when we're in those situations, it can be really hard to come up with something right on the spot. And, having something ready to go and having a toolbox of different tools ready to go to choose from can be extremely helpful. So I'll just kind of go through some different ideas here to spark your interest. So you can even have people in your toolbox. So if there's a certain person in your life that you notice that lifts you up, or if you're having a bad day and they're always there for you, or you want to chat with them, they can be in your toolbox. You can also have somebody that you personally don't know. So for example, motivational speakers or different, famous people even that are inspiring to you. I know a couple people that some clients have mentioned to me, and I don't know if any of you know them, but Marie Forleo, she's a very famous motivational speaker, as well as Tony Robbins is a motivational speaker as well. So I know a couple of clients of mine, they follow their blogs and podcasts, and they find that really inspiring. You could even have a power song. So one of my clients, this was a couple of years ago, but they were using the Nike Run Club app. And I don't know if anybody has ever used it. I think they have a walking app as well. But one of my clients was saying that they use this app, and the app can connect to your music. And what happens is you set it up so that you have a power song, and you just hit a button on the app. When you're lacking motivation, your power song will come on. So it's a song that motivates you to keep going. So if you find that you're walking or jogging or whatever it might be, and you're lacking that motivation, you don't have to go and find your power song. You can just hit that button and the power song will come on and help motivate you. So people use that. So you can have all kinds of different songs. You can have whatever it might be. You can have, again, memories, experiences. You can have all kinds of different things. Sometimes people like to have visualizations. So, somewhere where you've been or somewhere where you like to go, favorite place. Some people have quotes. So you can build up some different quotes and different things in that, where you can go to those things and have that. Another thing is, again, I mentioned about places, but you could have, if you're a gardener, out back in your garden. Some people just like sitting in the sun. I've had a few clients tell me that being by water really helps energize them and motivate them and makes them feel a little bit rejuvenated. I've had people talk about outside in nature. Being outside in nature really helps. I know this one's happened to me a couple times in that I've been out taking my dog out in different trails, and if it's a new trail and I don't know exactly where it goes, my curiosity motivates me because I don't know what's coming up around the next corner. So it motivates me to kind of keep going. Or it could be different things. Different things can motivate you as well. So it could be an organized office space might help produce productivity. A new pair of sneakers, a new water bottle. Not to say that you have to buy anything, but sometimes those things can kind of help boost our motivation for doing things if we're excited about it. I had a client last week tell me that they just bought a brand new notebook. It's almost like it's a really, really awesome journal. And so one of the things that she's excited about is writing things down and brainstorming in her new journal. So her new journal actually helped motivate her to kind of figure out things and brainstorm and prioritize and figure out what she'd like to do. So there's all kinds of different things. There's also different apps, different technology that we can use. So I know a lot of people have the Fitbits or the Apple Watches or that count your steps. So you can have a competition with yourself, try and beat yourself each day, just even by one step extra. Or I know that some of them connect to each other. So you can have a competition with friends or coworkers or family or whoever it might be. And there's all kinds of different podcasts and different webinars that can kind of help motivate us as well. So there's kind of all kinds of different ideas, but the biggest thing is that it's something that resonates with you. And the biggest thing about this is that motivation really looks different for everybody. There's not a one size fits all. It's just finding what is motivating to you. And what might be motivating to one person might not be motivating to you and vice versa. So it's just figuring out what's motivating to you. And one of the things is that it's important to have a motivation toolbox or a toolkit so that you have different things to choose from, because different days might require a different motivation strategy. So just like the car example, you might not be feeling one motivation strategy one day. You might be feeling like, maybe I need something different. So it's nice to have a host of different things to be able to choose from. One thing that I get a lot of questions about, or a question about a lot, is people will ask me, how do I know what will motivate me? So how do I know what is going to motivate me? And to answer that question, I always tell people it is trial and error, trying things out, seeing how it goes. And if one thing doesn't work, it's okay. There's always different options that you can choose from. But I always tell people, when you try out something to see if it's motivating or not, be aware of what you're doing, be aware of how it feels and what the outcomes are, and if it's motivating to you, right? And that's the important thing, is that when you notice something's important to you, or when you notice that something's motivating to you, you'll want to keep that in your toolbox. So you kind of want to keep a mental inventory of how it feels and what the outcomes are and what happened with that. So I always tell people about that as well. Oops. So now that we've talked about all kinds of different ideas and different strategies for motivation, and maybe some of you have already thought about this, but what does your motivation toolkit look like? What's in your toolkit? And you can take yourself off mute and feel free to share. But what's in your toolkit now? What motivates you?
Okay. I'll start if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, just to get it going. Well, nature has always been a great motivator for me, and I remember a specific experience at Kushabaquack in the park, and it was a beautiful area, and the water was close, and it was a very balmy day, and I could smell even sweetgrass, you know, and like
Oh,
all of my senses were were touched, you know, and it was a really experience of being united with nature, you know, and how we are truly connected, you know.
absolutely. Oh, that is
Yes.
really nice. So nice. Thank you for sharing
Mm,
that.
you're welcome.
I just like to respond to that maybe as well, what Trudy
Yeah.
was saying. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, good. Because sometimes I have problems with this. She is saying nature and all the senses are active, are vivid, that is motivating and calming, and everything you said, Lesley, of course, too. I am a meditation instructor, so
Mm-hmm.
for me, meditation is motivating, and it's also all the senses that become much more vivid, so that you experience the present moment and you experience whatever is around us, and you experience your body, and you're just more focused
Mm-hmm.
and more alive in a sense.
Yeah.
So I'm also used to work I was a certified psychologist, and I'm not doing that right now. I'm retired and doing some other things. But what for me, what is motivating is right now mainly meditation and the result of meditation, the post-meditation activities and thoughts that I'm engaging in.
Yeah, amazing. That is wonderful. And I love that you said that. Thank you for sharing that too, because you're absolutely right. Meditation really makes us focus and really almost heightens some of our senses too. So that's really amazing. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'd also like to mention that I really enjoyed the initial instruction you gave on meditation. That was very fast and very nice. Thank you.
Oh, good. Oh, you're welcome. That's great.
I would, this is Claire, I would add to that I love capturing, well, which means taking a picture of the moment, and especially the moment that triggers something inside my senses, the smells, the colors, the sounds, and what are making the sounds and all of that. So I just love doing that. I'm like Regida. I am retired, but busier than before. So I miss these things at times, but when I do get to it, I just enjoy it.
Yeah.
And all of your presentation has brought that up to the surface, which it makes me feel good, especially with the stress trying to connect with this whole thing.
Yeah, technology doesn't always cooperate, but yeah, we made it.
But you made me feel, all of this makes me feel better. And I do feel better.
Good, good. That's
So
wonderful.
yeah.
Good, excellent. Thanks for sharing. That's great. Anybody else? And if not, that's okay. All right, great. So one of the last things that I'd like to, and actually one of the last things for the previous slide I was just going to mention is that you can take a few minutes if you'd like. If you haven't thought of anything for your toolkit, you can take a few minutes, you know, tonight or tomorrow or maybe sometime this weekend, and just think about, you know, what's in your toolkit. And maybe this talk today has inspired some new ideas for you to try out as well. So the last little bit here, I just wanted to let you know again about, this is my contact information. So my cell phone is there, as well as my email address. So you can feel free to reach out. anytime, and we'd be happy to work more with you. But this is the type of thing that we as health coaches will help people with, things like motivation goals, or helping people come up with that toolkit, helping people brainstorm or prioritize, or work through any challenges or barriers or anything like that as well. So yeah.
I would like to add that there's still time for questions,
Yes,
comments.
absolutely. Yep. There's time
And
for questions and comments. Yeah, absolutely. I
yes,
think we
yes,
have about 20 minutes left. So
that's right.
yeah.
I'm curious. Well, I've been involved in some of these things, but motivation and goals.
Mm-hmm.
How do you connect those so
Yeah.
that yeah, well, especially take for example the beginning of each year. We
Mm-hmm.
take these much well-intended goals, but well, they sort of filter out of our lives because, well, I'm just, I think there is a way and tricks to, and I love that toolbox thing, and
Mm-hmm.
that self-talk, that positive talk.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but how do we connect those in everyday
Yeah.
life when we do have to take goals? And it doesn't have to be at the beginning of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Every day or every week or
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the questions that we get asked quite often is, how do I connect the two? And you're absolutely right. Oftentimes it does happen at the end of the year just because the new year, new you, New Year's resolutions type of things, but it can happen anytime throughout the year. So I would tell people a couple of different things. I would ask them, what's really important to you? And is it meaningful to you? Is it personal? Is it meaningful to you? So whatever it is that you want to do, is it important to you? The next thing I would ask is, do you have a ton of different goals, or do you have one goal? So it's actually better to focus on one particular goal rather than a whole bunch of different goals. We found that if people tend to focus on a ton of different goals at once, people tend to get overwhelmed, and then, nothing happens. So it's better to focus on one particular goal and focus on that, and then see some success. And that's what tends to happen is when people start working on small, manageable goals that, you can look at day to day. For example, if you're successful or not, the successes build up. And it's actually been proven that when you have 4 to 6 consecutive successes in a row, that you'll be more likely, more motivated to keep going. So even having success in the goals is motivation to keep going because you feel proud of yourself. Those inner positive self-talk things come out more, right? We're proud of ourselves. We can see how far we've come, and those things start to come out. Another thing that I tell people to do is that at the end of each week, so say, for example, somebody has a goal of, I don't know, walking 3 times a week, for example. Maybe at the end of that week, they set aside a little bit of time for reflection. And during that reflection, it's really good to ask 3 key questions. So the first question is, what made my goal easier? So we're not saying that goals are easy or anything like that, but what made it easier? So for example, with the walking, maybe it was having a walking buddy. Maybe it was having some music with you. Maybe it was a new pair of sneakers that you tried out and love, whatever it might be. What made it easier? And then what were the things that made it difficult? So what were the things that came up that made it difficult to do? So maybe it was the weather outside. Maybe it was, maybe you're the type of person that doesn't like walking by yourself, whatever it might be. And then the third question to ask yourself is, what can I do differently, or what can I adjust or do differently next time to make it easier for myself? So each time or each week, as you go through and cycle through those questions and reflect back and see how things went, we're more able to get a feel of what makes it easier for us. So by the end of it, we're almost kind of motivated to do it because it's working for us and we actually like what we're doing, right? So there's all kinds of different pieces embedded into motivation when people work on their goals.
Mhm.
Yeah, great question.
Like breaking the goals into small tasks. That's what I'm finding is working better for me.
Oh, good,
Yes.
good. I'm glad. And that's so great to hear, because oftentimes, we tend to have these big goals, but if we focus on those small little steps, it can be a bit more manageable, and we feel a little bit of pressure off ourselves from completing this big, huge thing when we just focus on the little tiny pieces. So that's wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you talk to people about vision boards and things like that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's all kinds of things that people can do, and people get really creative. Sometimes people actually have an actual vision board, like a Bristol board or a big poster that they, cut out pictures from magazines or print off pictures from the internet. Some people used Pinterest boards, if anyone's familiar with Pinterest. I have lots of people who will do that and come up with inspiring quotes or different things like that. And it's really whatever works for you. But we do talk about that a lot.
And some people like to, compete with a friend, and that type of thing. It kind of motivates, I find.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you're absolutely right too. That competition with a friend, I have a client right now who, it's actually a different person, but they're actually learning to jog. They're jogging, but they're kind of learning to run now.
Yes.
And him and his friend go together and they actually try and beat each other's time. Like he'll go faster and the other person will go a little fast. Like they're kind of in, friendly competition. So it does help.
I find with weight loss and things like that, if you have a friend that's, going along with you, it's very motivating. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And if somebody can offer, if you're having a bad day and, that person offers, a kind word or something like that, that can really be helpful too and can go a long way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is the important part of including buddies, people that can support you in good and not so good times, and using your toolkit to remind you that this person has brought you this or this or this in making a difference.
Yes, absolutely. Yep, absolutely.
I find also when walking that I listen to audiobooks.
Oh, good idea.
Oh.
So
that's a really good idea.
Even if you walk alone, you just put one piece on and the other one you hear the birds, and then you have the birds in the book.
I love that. I think that's so nice.
Great.
Very nice. Good. Any other questions? If there's not, that's okay.
I think there was some questions on chat there for you, though.
Oh.
From Patrina.
Here, I'll stop my share here so I can see the chat. Let's see. Okay, I'll start at the top here. Can we receive a copy of the presentation? Yeah, sure, absolutely. I can send it to you, Claire or Rochelle?
Yes.
And then,
yes.
Okay.
Definitely. And the other part to it, if I may add, is that all of the talks are available online. They have been registered and they're available on our website, readily on our website.
Amazing, great. Next question. Can you repeat the app for the Motivation Power Song? Yes, so the app is the Nike Run Club. It's the Nike Run Club, and it's a free app and it connects to your Spotify or whatever music you listen to, and you can set it up for a power song so that you can just hit the power song button and your song will automatically pop on for motivation. Sorry, I have.
Can you write the name down?
Yeah. Yep. Nike Run Club app.
Some people use the theme from Rocky.
Yeah. Yeah. Run Club.
That's a good one.
There we go. Okay. Okay, so I struggle to do bite size and try and do everything. My goals become eclipsed into functional ones rather than self-care ones. My children's needs seem to interrupt mine. That's another question that we get a lot. And actually we have a whole self-care workshop that actually deals with some pieces of boundaries. And that can be really tough. One of the things that we have on our worksheet with that workshop is we have a no list, and it's looking at things that you can say no to or delegate to somebody else. So it's just kind of looking at boundaries and kind of creating some time for you. So carving out some time for you. But it can be really, really hard for sure. And as for the bite-sized pieces, I always tell people that even like a goal doesn't have to be physically doing something. Like it doesn't have to be going for a walk. It doesn't have to be, cutting up veggies, or, a goal doesn't have to be actually doing something. A goal can actually be prep work too. So for example, a goal could be, even carving out some time to find your sneakers if you're looking to go for a walk, or like that can be a goal in itself. So even breaking things down into, different things that you can do and accomplish in one day is helpful. And again, it doesn't have to be something that you have to physically do. It can be anything, and it can also be the prep side. I had a client last week who her preparation for her goal was actually reaching out to somebody for some information about something. So it doesn't necessarily, that's a goal in itself, right? But it's just carving out that time. Because if we look at goals and if we say, okay, I'm just using walking just because it's one of the easier examples to use right now. But if I said I'm going to walk tomorrow, a lot of people might think, oh my gosh, that's a good goal to have. And it is a good goal to have. But sometimes it might be too big, and we might have to backtrack a little bit and think about, okay, what are all the pieces that are required to actually go walking, right? I need to find my sneakers. I need to get my water bottle. I need to fill up my water bottle. Maybe I like listening to music. Maybe I need a playlist. Maybe I need to carve out time to create a playlist. Like there's a whole bunch of different pieces that go into walking tomorrow. So it's looking back at all those pieces and asking yourself, okay, what actually goes into that? And then starting at that point. I hope that answers that question.
I started to put my things into a certain bag that I know this is for walking,
Yes, yeah.
And I can just grab the bag when I'm going. Yes.
Oh, that's a great one. That's a great idea. Have everything prepped and ready to go. I love that.
I have several bags.
I have the boots already. They're made for walking. But they don't go out often, and especially in the summer when it's too warm to wear boots.
Yeah.
It's an excuse, and we have to stop giving ourselves excuses and set different limits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's really important too, setting different limits and knowing what's your limit and what's not. So for example, I have a lot of people tell me, in fact, this just happened a couple weeks ago. I had a client come to me and say, you know what, I noticed my neighbor goes out walking every morning at 6 a.m. I want to do the same thing. And so we got talking about it, and it sounded like a good goal. He was going to get up at 6 a.m. and go for that walk for 20 minutes, only twice a week. And then we get talking a little bit further, and I asked him, I said, so are you a morning person? Do you like to get up in the mornings? And he said, oh my gosh, I hate the mornings. I always hit the snooze button. My wife has to nudge me to get up in the mornings. So, you know, that's probably not a good goal for him, right? That time of day probably doesn't work, right? So sometimes we see other people do things and we think, oh, we want to do the same thing, but it might not necessarily work for us. And it's just finding a different way that works for us. So we didn't have any other questions. The next one's asked, can you write down the name down? So I put the Nike Run Club app. And I think that's it for the chat box.
Yes, it was one of, there's as well another message in there saying that you have given a wonderful talk. And that she regrettably had to leave earlier.
Yes, I saw
she
that.
was sorry to have to do that. Yes. Other questions, other comments to Lesley?
Lesley.
Thank you, Lesley. Whoops, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I just want to thank you, Lesley, for the talk. It was really great session. I enjoyed.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. You're welcome.
Yes, I thought it was excellent as well, Lesley.
Oh, good. That's wonderful.
Oh,
sweet.
Yes.